In today's show, we're going to learn a bunch of PowerApps little things. So we're going to talk about Notify, we're going to talk about Self, we're going to talk about Launch, we're going to talk about Exit, and my personal favorite, we're going to finally show you an easy way to make drop-down boxes have a blank value with no extra work. Oh my goodness, so exciting. So a bunch of little things here today though, just want to kind of get these in your toolbox so you can build better apps. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. In today's show, it's a bunch of little things. Right, and these are the little skills that you want to develop, or sometimes I refer to in my classes as planting seeds. I just want to teach you a bunch of little nuggets because I think adding these into your PowerApps skill set is just going to make you a better app builder. Like for example, we're going to cover how to have dropdowns be blank. There's now a default setting for that. And literally the moment I found that, I added it to a production app. That was how cool and important that was to me. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to cover that one. We're going to cover how to launch into new targets or the self, which is pretty cool, right? So launch in the same window. We're going to talk about how exit works. We're going to talk about Notify can now have timers on how long it shows up, which will be very helpful. One of the reasons I never used Notify before. And then we're going to talk about this concept of self, which is a new thing that's not fully evolved yet, but it kind of shows you where PowerApps is heading and is going to help you guys build smarter, more reusable controls and such. So I'm pretty excited for all this. Let's just switch over to my desktop, take a look at the demo app I built, talk about some of the things, and then show you how to do them. So over here in my demo app, you can see that right now I have a drop down, and look, is it blank? Yep, the drop down selected value is nothing. And if we hit a drop down, we're like, oh, I wanted 2, then it's no longer blank. If I reset it, it goes back to blank. So you know in the past to do this, you had to bolt in a collection, right? You had to go in there and say, all right, I want to take and do a collection, put blank records in there, and then put what I wanted, and that was how you did that. That is no longer the case. So how does this work now? Super simple is the answer. So Microsoft quietly one night slipped in here. There is now an option up here at the top called Allow Empty Selection. It is false by default, but you just change this to true, and all of a sudden your dropdowns now come in blank without you having to do all that collection stuff to add a thing. So I thought that was a huge deal. And literally one of my customer apps, I added it like the moment I found it. And I just tripped over it. Microsoft didn't even announce it. It just came out. I found it. But what's also important here, there's a little nugget with it. So you can see it is blank. Yay. So I go down here, I hit set to 3. Also, and this is a little hard for your users to know, but it is worth noting, if you go down here, if you select 3 again, it'll even reset back to blank. So kind of a fun little way to make your drop downs a little bit better. So I'm imagining that for a lot of us, you know, where we don't truly want to have those default values, we don't want it to be the first thing on the list all the time, then you need to do that. Now, the other thing that's important was here. So this function here is just doing a reset, right? Reset, we notice, sets the control back to its default value. So make sure that when you're playing with this, in my case, because I wanted to reset back to blank, I went to the default setting and made sure that there was nothing here. So by default, there was the number 1, and 1 was the first thing on my list. The reset wasn't working. I was like, ah! But you don't have to worry about that because I showed you. All right, so that's the first one, right? Bunch of quick little things. That's what I promised here. So next up, what do we got? Fun with launch. And so for this one, what I want to do is I want to demo this using Chewy. So I'm going to log in over here. So this window is Chewy. And so Chewy is going to run the app because I don't want to get confused with ours. So go over here, boop. So one of the things that we've always been able to do is launch into a new window, right? I click this button and it launches us over here into a new window. That's been there for a long time. But what they gave us just recently is now I can say launch self-target. So you can see I've got 2 tabs, right? My make one and then where I'm running the app. So if I say launch self-target, then we can actually cause the launch to happen right here. Right? So PowerApps is gone. We're out of PowerApps. There was no warning, no nothing. So you gotta be careful with it. But a lot of you, like when you close the app, you want a button that says close that takes them back to a SharePoint list or something like that. So you can use launch and then the target itself and do that. And so to look at how that works, let's go over here. So the launch new window, this is that same one. Now you will notice that the format of launch has changed. Now what you have to do is you have to have this middle section where you put in parameters. And so in this case, you can see I just launched and then I had no parameters. So it's a record. So it's an open curly, close curly, nothing there. And then you get that third optional one, which is launch target. And then you can either do blank or you can do self. And notice that self has the single quotes around it. And we'll talk about that more in a second. But that is how I launch it into a new window. So new equals blank right now. Now over here on the launch self target, what I did was I had a little more fun. So I launched, here's the URL. And then I said, hey, I wanted to have those parameters Q equals PowerApps. And if you notice over here in Chewy's, let's go back to Chewy for a second. So here it did search, and then it did, question Q equals PowerApps, right? That got fed in because of the way that I typed this in here. And so if we change this and we said, hey, launch Q equals, and instead of PowerApps, if we did, I'm afraid to type things in with the internet, but you could put different things here. You can also add extra parameters. So if you wanted to have 2 parameters, so you want to be like Q equals this and format equals, and then XML, something like that. It's XML feed or something like that. But anyway, when I press the button now, what you'll see is that it just threw this up here in the URL and basically Bing ignored it because it didn't know what format equals XML. But so what's going here, this section is the parameters that you're launching with. If you were going to do deep linking, right? We know we've done some parameters there, so you could do that. But this section, parameters, and then down here we've got launch targets in either self today or blank. Now what's also interesting here is I kind of put it on the screen. It's a little hard to read. But one of the things Microsoft did when they announced this one is they said, hey, we're going to change it. We don't like what we named these. And so they're going to change them in the future to be launchTarget.replace and launchTarget.new. So if you're watching this video a year from now and you're like, why doesn't this self thing work? There's the new answers, right? So it's going to evolve. Now, if you build it in your app today so it does self, what they've said is that when you republish your app after the change, the app knows that you built it with self and they know that they changed self to replace. So they're going to fix your app. So that'll be kind of cool to see happen over time. So build one now just so you can see in a month or 3 months when they change it, does it just magically work like they said it did? I think it's pretty neat. So the bonus thing I wanted to give here, this is a tip I've wanted to show you guys for a long time. I just haven't had an excuse to slide into a video. So this is my excuse. But sometimes you guys are like, hey, I know we can send emails using the Office 365 email connector, but sometimes you say, hey, I want to be able to open up Outlook and have it send an email, let the user finish filling it out and send it from their Outlook. No big deal. So if we click this, you're going to see that I got a pop-up that is Outlook, and it's got a bunch of different parameters here, right? So it's got the to, the CC, the subject, the body. So the way that we do that, let's go back over to the Shane window. Oh, that's the Chewy window. The Shane window. There we go. Shane window. And so here what we're going to do is you can use the HTML concept of mail to. So if you launch and then mail to, and so then this is who I'm sending it to, and then a question mark, subject equals whatever text you want, body equals whatever you want. And then, in this case, I filled in the username, and then I went ahead and put a CC in here just to kind of show that worked as well. But so that valid HTML string, it's just an HTML concept called mail to. What that does is that invokes your local operating system to whatever the default email tool is on your machine, and then takes it and runs with it. So in my case, Outlook is my default mail client, so that's why Outlook worked. If your default mail client is Lotus Notes, right? Let's go old school. I did that back in the mid 90s. Whew. Anyway, they would have launched my Lotus Notes client back then. So that's a little bonus one for you guys, how to send emails that open up the user's actual Outlook. And then also, as I'm going through all these formulas, remember, if you sign up for training.powerapps911.com, the curated content, you can download this app with all these working functions, so you'd have all of this. But if not, you can just copy it off screen. No big deal. All right, so that's fun with launch. Let's see what I had next. All right, so this is called self. And so I'm going to grab this controller. I'm going to drag it around. I'm going to kind of drag it around like this where you can kind of see what I'm doing now. And notice that the X and the Y are changing. So the way that this works is Microsoft is now giving us this idea of a self. And so self references the control itself, right? So if you add a button, it's the button. If you add a smiley face icon, it's the smiley face icon, right? It is the self. If my self is, and so in this case, this self.x and self.y is an easy demo, right? Greg did this on the blog post, so I thought I'd steal it. I liked what he did. But so this gives you a way to start making controls self-referencing. And so for example, down here on my button, So you can see that right now my button, if I hover, it's green, right? It works the way I expect. Well, what's nice about this is I set the fill to green. Let's change the fill to red. Hit play. And look, now all the other properties are also red. Why is that? Because if you go look at like my hover fill, it just says whatever the fill is, right? So self.fill, and then do that, right? The border is the same way. And so you can start to do self-referencing. And branding is probably the first place that you'll do it because you want to be able to like change the color once instead. You know, in the old days, what I'd have to do is, if I added a button, I'd have to come over here and be like hover fill, change it manually. And then if I change it again, right, you just got in this weird case. Or you could be like, oh, I want your fill to be right the other way that we used to write this. This is button 3. Is you'd be like button 3.fill or button 3.fill. And so then that would work. But then when you start moving things around, was it the old button 3? Was it the copy of button 3? It got really weird. So what you're going to see is, as you get better at Power Apps and you start thinking a little bit, when you're doing these type of self-references, use self, and it's going to just cut down and make it so when you copy and paste, move controls between things, it'll just always be referencing itself even when its name changes. So where I'm most excited for this is I do a lot of crazy stuff with, drop downs, right? And I like to have on change, do something. And a lot of times it's reference itself. But then I start copying and moving things around and it doesn't know if it's referencing itself or the old version, and if I rename things in the middle of it. So I'm imagining that I'm going to do a lot of this, right? Set var test, self.selectedText.value. And then that'll be how I do self-referencing values, right? Because this would then get me the value that this dropdown was actually displaying right then. Now you notice here I use selected text. There is currently a bug where selected, if you do selected, see that? It freaks out. It's like, I don't know what you mean. That's a bug. They're fixing it. I was hoping they were going to have it fixed by the time we made the video, but I got tired of waiting. So that's not fair. I gave them like a day to fix it, and that's never going to happen. But anyway, with this though, so I can, selected text works. So I went ahead and embraced that for now. But I think that this is really going to also speed up a lot of how I build my apps, because I do end up referencing the control that I'm in from itself a lot, right? I want to take whatever value you chose in the dropdown, and then I want to write that into a variable, or I want to go do a lookup based on what you just did there, right? I like to kind of have this, controls referencing themselves a lot. And today it's kind of painful, and self is really kind of cool there. The other nice thing about self is it's paving the way to we're going to start seeing some more of this type of stuff. And I think the most exciting one is hopefully one of these days we're going to, see them kind of go another step where we can start to reference records and things like that and understand where you came from. So I think there's some neat things here. Also, if you're really confused by self, maybe you have used parent before. And so parent and self are kind of that same concept, right? But parent is like when you're in a gallery, the parent is the gallery, right? Or when you're in a form and you're on a control, it could be the card above you, or if you're referencing the card, it could be the actual form itself. So self just says reference myself, right? Be very introspective. So I think that's a neat one to do more with, and you'll see me incorporate that, especially once they fix the bug, right? Because I don't ever use selected text. It's, I don't know, whatever. We're not going to get into that right now. So next up on my list is fun with notify. Oh, I missed fun with notify. So we'll hit play again. And so now if I hit notify, I said hello. And you can see that it's going to go away here after 5 seconds. And so the way that we can do that now is when you do notify, right? So it's the text you want to show. It's the type of notification. And so with that type of notification, if you haven't used this before, it can be warning, error, information, or success. And you're going to see it kind of color codes itself different. So we'll do success here. And then this is the number of milliseconds. So in my case, 5,000 milliseconds. Let's make it like 2,000 milliseconds. That was too long to wait. And so that'll make it pop up now for 2 seconds. So if I hit this and do notify, you get a nice little green, and then in 2 seconds, it's gone. And so I never used notify in any of my apps before because I hated the user had to click it off. I thought it was too awkward. But I think that you're going to see me using notify more because I can now say, all right, show them notify for 2 or 3 seconds and then have it go away. So very cool. I definitely encourage you, right? And what's important to understand is like notification type .error doesn't mean like it it doesn't have to be an error. All that really means is that it's going to be this pinkish red weird color, right? So it's letting you control kind of the color and the little symbol that was showing up over here. So there's a little red X that showed up with it, but it's not like it's causing an error in your app or anything like that. So these are really just controlling how it is formatted. So that is that. And I also believe, let's double check me. You can also, if you do not include a time, right? So if you just did, I said hello, an error, then when we do notify, it is going to stay here until I click away. So there's no default timer. So if you don't specify the milliseconds, it'll just stay here until the user clicks away. And this was the old behavior and really annoyed me. Oh, it did go away. All right, it has a default time now. Oh, well, that's fascinating. I had no idea it had a default time. All right, I lied. You know me, I'm a control freak. I'm just going to set it to show how long I want. So somebody tell me in the comments how long that was. I'm guessing it was 5 seconds, but I don't know. But then I'm guessing if I really wanted it to be there forever, right, we just add a bunch of zeros. Ha 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 ha. And so then now that would be 200 seconds. I'm not going to sit here for 3 minutes and wait, but I can still hit the X and just manually get rid of it. Okay? So that's Notify. Very cool little guy. Almost done. Last but not least, we have got Fun with Exit. So we're going to switch over to Chewy to demo this one as well, because I do not want to mess up my machine or my window. So here you can see, let's go over here to Fun with Exit. So with Exit now, we have the ability to log out a user or not log out a user, which has actually always been there, but now it's a little more straightforward that's there. And so if I say like exit without logout, then it's just going to take me, the user, back to the screen. Yeah, all right, not bad. Let's get rid of this window. If I go in here though, and I say, hey, I want to exit with the logout, then it's actually going to physically log the user out, which is important because all right, I'm out, right? So now if I go back here and try and open the app again, I've now got to go through the authentication process. So if you've got like a kiosk machine where multiple people are going in and out, it's a great chance to use the exit with a logout. So boom, and I'll say stay sign in, but it can still pump me out. So then over here, the last but not least, I tried to set up, right, because one of the things that people don't like about exit without logout is that it takes them back into PowerApps, right? It used to take us into Dynamics, which was super confusing. So at least now it just takes us back to the PowerApps window. But that is unfortunately a little weird. And if you exit with logout, then it just kind of drops you in the middle of nowhere, right? You're just in that limbo state of close your window. So I tried to play with some ideas. Could I log you out and navigate you? And it turns out I can't because it's kind of like a fork in the road, right? If I log you out, then I can't run the navigate afterwards. And if I navigate, then I can't exit after I've navigated. So I wasn't able to get any of that to work. So I left in here though my trying. I know sometimes you guys like to kind of see what I tried. The syntax for this, exit false does not log you out. Exit true does. Here you can see, so I tried using launch like this. I tried having a timer run and then have it go when the timer did. That didn't work. The only thing I didn't try, let's just try one more thing. Let's try together. Is I did not try what happens if I, let's see, let's get rid of that. What happens if I launch and then exit? I did not try this. So there you go. We're going to try this together. I'm certain something will explode and I'll be mad and have to remake this, but who cares? You can see my timer's mad because I got rid of its variable. But let's just see what happens if I say exit. So it launched. So that happened, but I think what didn't happen was I don't think I got logged out, right? And so if we just go back over here to make, and we'll just see when I click on the app, do I get forced to log in? I did not, right? So just like I assumed, thank goodness I was right. Yay. So over here, I could not find a way to both launch you and exit you. If you figure one out, leave me a comment, tell me, and I'll share the world and make you famous. Well, not make you famous, but I will give you credit for it, of course. Okay, so that's what I had for you guys today. Just a bunch of little pieces that I kind of bolted together. I wanted to get out there, make you a little bit better at app building, get some more things in your toolboxes. You also might have noticed I went with this new bigger orange cursor to try and make it easier. A couple people provided feedback that sometimes they couldn't find my mouse. So if you have any strong feelings one way or another about that, definitely provide them down below, and I will do what I can. You might have also noticed on YouTube, I got a new header, right? My header is much nicer looking. So some of you should comment and say, my header looks much nicer on the homepage. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, last but not least, remember if you are a training customer, so training.powerapps911.com, the curated library, you can download this app, and so you've got it. And remember, the way that I do this type of stuff, like personally, is when I learn new things like this, I just put it all in an app like this. I'm going to save this. And so a month from now, I'm like, hey, how does launch work again? I've forgotten, right? I just come back to these apps. And that's you know, my Power Apps environment is just littered with little point solutions like that. And you should do the same thing. So you're not always trying to reinvent the wheel. Or remember, was that in the HR app or the performance app? Which app did I do that thing in I want to steal? I put the things I want to keep in their own little apps like this, so I have reference. All right, and with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem is big or small, check us out at PowerApps 911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.